When I recently released one of my videos, I was trying to publicize it to try to get people to watch and to subscribe, which I strongly recommend that you do, by the way. However, a friend of mine said to me that she really liked the effect that I used in the opening, in the introduction of the videos. And that gave me the idea to do a tutorial on how to create that effect in Hitfilm Express. I'm Mike, and I'll show you how. So let's go ahead and create a new project. We'll leave everything here at the defaults and click Start Compositing. Let's go into the properties of this composite shot and just change the duration to about 10 seconds. We won't need more than that. And click OK. Now what we'll do is create a new layer. Put a new plane layer in. We'll make it black. So this way you can see what we're going to do, and the laser effect will come out a lot more clearly. So we'll name this BG for background and click OK. Now what we want to do is put a new text layer on here. So click New, and then Text. We'll put the width at 1920 to make centering it easier. And since it's going to be a pretty big letter, we'll set the height to 800 or so. So now let's just put in the letter U. It's a nice symmetrical letter, easy to use, and for the purposes of this demonstration, I think this will work great. So let's select that. First, center it, go into the text properties. I'm going to change the font to one that I like for this type of work, which is called Boris Black Blocks. As you can see, it's a much thicker font, and you'll be able to work on it. Now let's change the size to something big, about 500 should work here. And now here's the important part. What you want to do is change the fill color and make it transparent, since we're only using the outline of the letter. Obviously now you don't see anything, so what we have to do is add the outside stroke to it. So let's change that color to white, and we'll set the stroke color or stroke width to about 15. And now that should be good. The new thing we want to do here is now make our points, which we're going to use to guide the laser dot. So new layer, and then point. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a good idea of what's going on. And what we're going to do here is set the start point here. So we're going to move it right here. And we'll set a keyframe here. Let's go to about 1 second. And we're going to set a keyframe on the position right here. And let's move to the end. We'll go about 3.5 seconds out or so. And set another keyframe at the end point. And make sure that it's the same level as there. So now you have your start point and your end point. Now, since we're going to go at it from both sides, let's duplicate this point layer. And you can do that by selecting the point and pressing Control D. Now let's rename them so we can make sure that we have which point we want to work with. So we'll call this one L point for the left side and R point for the right side. Good. The next thing we want to do is start our path. So let's work on the left point first. We'll hide the right point so there's no confusion. And let's go to our start point. We can double click the keyframe here and get started. So what you want to do is move a few frames at a time and get to the position. So there, and move it to about there. Let's going to be a lot of grunt work here to get everything in the right position, but we have to do it. And then we're coming up to the straightaway, and now we can move it up a little bit to get to the top of the letter. And now we're going to make a left here. And drop back down. Now you see that the path is coming up with a curve. We're going to fix that in a minute. So get down to the bottom of this. Move to the point here. And now come back to the final points here to meet back at the end. Maybe one or two more. And here. And now we can just adjust this back. So now let's take a look at what our point's doing. So we could see that it's moving up here, but we need to fix it because of the curve. So let's go ahead and do that. So highlight that, and what we'll do is click on the point where we had the corner, and now you see a couple of handles come out. So adjust the handle here to follow the path of the letter and do the same thing at the top. And now repeat the process for the next corner. There, and we're done here. So let's take a look at what the path looks like now. Okay, good. So now we have the path, and what you could do is you could spread out the keyframes if you wanted to go slower. You could compress the keyframes if you wanted to go a little bit faster. So now let's go ahead and repeat the process for the right point. So let's go back to the start point and hide the left point. Now what you want to do here is, just to keep everything consistent, match up roughly to the keyframes of the other point. So let's do that and keep going. And what we'll do is we're going to run into the same issue that we had before, where the point gets curved. So let's move to the next corner, get this up there, and move to the other end of the corner, and now you see the curve coming back again. And there we go. We'll move back down and then start the curve and getting ready to head back for home. There, and just one more to do. And we're back at the end. And let's just move this last keyframe to line up with the first one. So now what we could do is unhide the left point, highlight both points, and we could see how the path works. And you see they're both coming up, and that I need to fix the right point. So let's go ahead and do that. Click the corner, drag the handles, then click the other corner and repeat the process. Scrub the playhead back to the beginning and run it again after highlighting both points. And that looks pretty good. So now that we've got that done, the next thing we have to do is put in our laser points. Now that we've created our path, let's go ahead and start working on the laser. So let's close these up to get them out of the way. And we'll create a new layer, a new plane. We'll call this one laser because that's where we're going to put our laser dots. We'll keep it black and click OK. So now, of course, you see it's covering our letter. We don't want that, so let's right click and set the blend to add. Now you see our letter come back. So now what we want to do is get our laser beam effect going. So let's go to Effects and then search for light flares. Drop it right on here, and now you see our light flare. It's obviously not the right type in the wrong position for us. So let's first put the settings on to our light flare. So let's go to the left side here under Controls and expand out light flares. First thing we want to do is position it correctly. So let's parent it. This one, let's go to the left point here. And we'll center it at 0 and 0. So now if you parent it to the right point here, you see it moves onto the letter, which is good. But now obviously it doesn't look right. So first thing we want to do is change the flare type. And let's set that to laser dot. And now you see it's a little bit better. Don't worry about it sitting behind the letter. As we're drawing the letter, it's going to appear. So that's not going to be a big problem here, but more on that later. So we want to change some settings here on what the flare looks like. So let's change the intensity here. Let's drop it down to about 0.5. Good. Right there. It's a little bit smaller. And let's go down to where the rays are. We'll set the brightness to 2, make it a little bit more brighter, and we'll set the quantity scale of rays to 2. So now there's the crossing effect. We'll set the length and width because it's still kind of big here. So let's set the length and width to about 0.3. This way we get a more focused look on your laser beam. So now let's scrub through and we see that it looks pretty good. Okay, now that we've created our point for the left side, let's go ahead and duplicate this for the right side. So let's highlight light flares, and we could duplicate or press Control D. So now obviously it's twice as bright. Now what we want to do, since they're both currently parented to the left point, we want to parent one to the right point. So let's take this highlighted one and go to hotspot position, change the use layer, and now we're parented to the right point. To keep everything nice and organized, let's change this to right flare and the other one to left flare. Just like that. Now let's scrub through, and now you'll see that both flares should be working properly. And they are. So now we've gotten our letter drawn, our point path ready to go, and we've got our laser beam on it. So now what we want to do is create the mask for the beam to travel on. So let us first go to the text layer, right there, and we'll create a freehand mask. So we'll start here. Just work our way down. And this is going to be a little bit where the grunt work comes in. So work here and then cross over to the other side. You can use those rays from the beam as a guide. Over the corner, back up to the top, across, and meet up at the first point. And now you have your mask. Let's adjust that a little bit. Good. Now what we want to do, you see the letter still shows up. We actually want the laser beam to draw the letter. So what we want to do is invert this. So now you'll see the other side of the U coming up, but that's not a problem for now. We'll catch up on that in a minute. Next thing we want to do is, of course, follow the path of the points. So let's do that. Let's follow along with the keyframes that we used. And go to transform and path. Let's set a keyframe for the start. And we'll work our way through. So and then just follow where the path crosses here, where the beam crosses the light. Sometimes it's a little tricky grabbing these handles, but this is kind of where the grunt work comes in. And we will eventually speed this up a little bit so you don't have to just listen to me hacking away here. Now let's scrub back, and we see that we have our path ready to go. So run it back one more time. And that looks pretty good. Now that we've got our mask for the left-hand side done, we want to do the same thing for the right-hand side. There is a little bit of a trick that'll make life just a wee bit easier here. Let's go here. We'll set it back to the beginning so you can see the mask. And we'll duplicate this mask. So now you see two masks. Let's be on the safe side here, avoid confusion, and we'll call this one left mask. And then the other one would, of course, be right mask. Now you have two identical masks going on here. What you want to do is go to the right mask, go to Transform, break this link on this scale, and set the scale to -100. What that's going to do is flip it over to the other side. So that's the first thing we want to do. Now if we scrub through, you see that it doesn't quite work right. We lost the masking. So set the R mask here to darken. Let's clear that out of the way. And now you can see that the letter draws perfectly. Good, so now our letter is drawn, the laser's working. Now we want to put the glow effect on it. So the first one we want to do is take this laser level here and just end that so the laser beams drop off because they're no longer needed. Now what we want to do is add the glow effect. So put the glow effect right here into the text layer. And now we can go into the settings. So we'll start here because what we want to do is time it to when the laser ends, right there. So we're going to keyframe here at the intensity at 0. And now we're going to move about half a second up. So right about there. And shoot the intensity all the way up. And you'll see another keyframe show up here. Now we've unrolled that. Next thing we want to do, because we want to hold it for a little bit here, maybe about 2 or 3 frames. And we'll set another keyframe there. And then bring it back down to about 2. So we still have a little bit of a glow left. Now what we want to do is we want to move the threshold to about 25. The radius, we can move that up just a little bit, maybe 71 or so. That should be okay. And we want to set the blend to add to keep the glow working here. Now we want to go to the channel intensity. You see everything is set by default at 1. Let's increase the red to 2. So now if you scrub through, you watch everything going here. And there you are. And you have your glow. There's one last thing we want to do to really make this effect pop. So let's go ahead and create a new text layer. We'll keep the dimensions as the same as we did before. Click OK. We'll zoom out so we can see everything that we're doing. And then go to the text tool. And we're going to type in the letter U again. And since it kept the same settings as before, you don't see it because it's a white outline over a white outline. Of course, we want to change that. So let's select all. Go to the text tool and keep it transparent like we did before. But first we want to change the color to red to match the glow. And then we want to make it thinner. So let's make it about 4 should work here. So now you see a little bit of an inlay inside the text. Let's highlight that again and zoom back in. What we want to do is just offset it a little tiny bit, just a couple of pixels here, nothing drastic. Just like that. So you have a little bit of an illusion of depth. So now it looks the way I like it. Let's run a test. And the first thing that you see is obviously that the red outline is there way too early. So let's set it up to time it when we need it. The way we'll do that is by going to the high point of the glow. So let's go down to the effects and to the glow. Let's double click that keyframe so we have the exact starting point. Going back up to our text, we want to set a keyframe for the opacity at 0 here. And then have it gradually come in as the glow effect drops down. So we can do that and then just double click here to the end of the glow effect and set that to 100 and you'll have a keyframe here. We obviously don't need the whole thing at the beginning, so let's just slide that over until when we need it. So let's give it another try and see how it looks. Good. So we have that working. And then one final bit of cleanup. Obviously, you only want the laser points to show up when you need it. So let's go here and drag that over. Let's go back to the start and see here's where the laser starts drawing. So let's set the opacity here to 0 for that layer. Set a keyframe. And just about 2 or 3 frames, we'll set another keyframe at 100% so that the laser shows up. And now, hopefully, our final version. And there you go. There is the laser drawing effect. And I hope you like it. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks again for watching.